Live desk as we get you going on this Thursday afternoon. It is 12:30 here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, ready to take you all around the state for the news as it's happened. Certainly here where we're located in Milwaukee, around the rest of Wisconsin. Hey, we could even take you to outer space. How about this happening right now as we have a live feed courtesy of NASA right now from the International Space Station, both inside and out, as a pair of astronauts right now, two women on board the International Space Station, are conducting just the 5th ever all-female spacewalk. They're doing a series of work on the International Space Station. They've been at it for hours at this point after this started earlier this morning, and this is happening, just amazing to think, in the moment as we're watching it here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Think about this for a second. It's a clearer picture here from the International Space Station than we can give you right now from downtown Milwaukee. A very gray and rainy day. We had a whole lot of rain early this morning, and it is not exactly a pretty picture here in the biggest city in Wisconsin, while we can check out what the astronauts are up to thousands of miles above us at the International Space Station. Just amazing, and that shows you some of the power of the Wisconsin Live Desk. Wherever it's happening, we can take you there, including in our neck of the woods here in southeastern Wisconsin. We're going to start you off with our reporter on the scene for this story, Bill Miston. Let's bring him in now from Cudahy. Bill, I'm going to get your microphone up for us here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Great to have you with us here. A serious story that you're covering and tracking for us outside of an elementary school in Cudahy. Take it away. What happened when a 12-year-old student showed up at school the other day?
Yeah, well, Carl, we're not at the school. We're at the Vel Phillips Juvenile Justice Center in Wauwatosa, where we're hoping to learn more information about the events that happened at that elementary school in Cudahy on Wednesday. A 12-year-old boy is in juvenile custody and expected to be in court today. It's unclear if prosecutors will be filing a petition against him, but Cudahy police say that they found a gun in the child's backpack. Now, the backstory here is that it happened Wednesday at Lincoln Elementary School, and a student came forward to a teacher and said that they believe that this other student had a gun in a backpack. The teacher then told the principal, who then went to where that backpack was located. The boy was in another part of the school, and the backpack was in another part as well. The police department says that the principal opened the backpack, saw that there was a handgun inside, and called Cudahy police. A school resource officer then secured that weapon, and the boy was arrested. Now, Cudahy police commend the student as well as the teacher and principal for acting quickly.
As for what comes next, Bill, I know you said you're outside of the juvenile center there. Are we expecting to see the child? What plays into the court proceedings today and the appearance when this is a 12-year-old at the center of this?
Well, it's our understanding that the juvenile is going to be appearing in court today, but it's unclear if he will be appearing in person or by electronic means. Some of those details we just don't know, as it's sometimes a case-by-case basis for juvenile court.
When it comes to some of the bigger picture issues, I know we've covered a lot down in Kenosha. There's been a series of gun scares here in Milwaukee as well, with students bringing handguns or airsoft rifles to schools. What are you hearing from both school officials, as you said, commending that initial student who said something, and then the larger issue of how to combat and identify and work through cases like this when a student unfortunately brings a gun to a school?
Well, there have been instances where children have either brought weapons or found with weapons or facsimiles of weapons, toy guns, specifically in Kenosha, 2 instances in 2 separate cases where there was a hours-long search in the community after a child had tried to get into a school with a backpack and bag and believed that there were weapons inside. There was another student where a gun was found on their person inside their clothing. And so these are instances where there were security measures in place that appear to have prevented either specifically the boy from getting in the school. He had to get buzzed into the school and then was confronted by school staff there. So yes, it's definitely a concern, as it has been for several years, of children getting a hold of weapons or even bringing fake weapons to schools.
And in this case, that gun did make its way inside that elementary school, but again, identified by another student. The principal able to confirm there was a gun in that backpack, and that led to the contacting with Cudahy police. When it comes to the timeline, Bill, for this afternoon, what we're expecting and then going forward, what do we expect to learn from authorities as their investigation continues into, I don't know, a motive, where the handgun came from, anything like that?
Again, Carl, it's hard to say because this is a juvenile case. So there are certain things as a part of juvenile cases that the public is not privy to. We are allowed to sit in on these hearings, but it's unclear. In this case, we know that if a petition is filed, a complaint is what it would be called for an adult, but if a petition is filed, we won't be able to review that because of the nature of the case.
Gotcha. Bill Miston on this for us after certainly a scare for families, for staff at that Cudahy Elementary School. We'll let you get back to your reporting. Bill Miston reporting outside of the Velar Phillips Juvenile Center there. You can look for his full story later today here on Fox Local. Bill, thank you very much for joining us here on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Thanks, Carl.
And as we turn the tables a little bit away from Bill, let him get back to his work on that. Again, you can look for that story later on here on Fox Local, as well as on our newscast later today. Let's get you out to something else happening right now. This goes all the way out to New York City, where Mayor Eric Adams is taking some questions from the media there, as well as other administration officials, calling it the best budget ever from the much maligned mayor of the biggest city in America. Let's listen into some of the questions happening right now in New York City.
But every month we add like about 200 because we spend about $200 million a month. So as of last month is about $7.7 billion. And for fiscal year 25, I believe it's $3.4 billion. And for fiscal year 26 is about $1.45 billion. We expecting a drop from the $200 million a month we burn a month to about $100 million a month into the next fiscal year. Our forecast is by the end of fiscal year 2026, we'll have about 20,000 folks under our care.
Wait, can I say, or DM Camille might want to say, just.
It's a very uncertain environment. I mean, we all know it's very uncertain. I mean, we're dealing with uncertainties. And everyone likes to have some stability to know exactly what's going to be the end game. But right now, we're in the midst of a lot of policies, and the policies keep shifting. So until we know for sure where we're heading, it makes it extremely difficult to plan.
What I was just going to say is the original $12 billion, we saved $5 billion over 3 fiscal years, and that's because we brought down the population by 83%, from 235,000 asylum seekers, we're down to 39,000 and change right now, and that's because of policies that DM Camille and DM Ann, when she was here, put into place, and so it brought down the estimate.
So $12 billion went down to $5 billion.
To 7.
The 3 years.
Yes, yeah, and 7.7 billion. It'll probably be by the end around $8 billion. So, but that's all savings that they put in because we brought down the number.
Right, we brought down the population with 30 and 60-day program. We encourage people to get work status. We advocated in Washington D.C. To make sure that we gave temporary protected status. We did a host of policies instead of listening to the naysayers that said 200,000 should stay in our care forever. They pushed back on it. They said we were inhumane for telling people you got 30 to 60 days. We see a securing of our borders, so we're not seeing the flow as we saw before. If we would have remained stagnant or listened to others, we would have been dealing with a 200 or maybe even a 300,000 population at taxpayers' expense. But we made the right decisions. We did the right things for migrants and asylum seekers, and we did the right things for New Yorkers. It's very successful. And when they do my documentary in 6 years, they're going to see how successful I was in handling this crisis, you know.
Two more, Nick.
Nick.
Was a field in the Bronx.
All right. You got that Bronx swagger, man.
Not the regular Bronx. figure for how many new investments this budget has for 26 for the next fiscal year? And also just in terms of these slowing tax revenues, the 8% down to 1%, how is that reflected in the budget? Are there investments you would have made had revenue stayed at 8% that now you have to omit from this?
I believe the new needs for 26 about almost $1.3 billion that we have in terms of new needs. Again, we, as I said, the way we budget, we try to be as conservative as we can. Okay, so therefore we're not anticipating growth of. When people said, okay, aren't you a little not careful, not to take into account some slowdown? Embedded in our forecast is a slowdown in growth. Okay, we're moving from 8% growth to 1% growth. So there's nothing crazy here that we're projecting 3, 4, 5% to spend money. That's not what we're doing in this plan. We try to be as careful as we can be, as smart as we can be in terms of decisions that we make. Make critical decision. Upstream investment. He's been saying for the past 4 years that I've been working with him. Okay, so what we did is education, criminal justice reform. We found all of those things that are critical in terms of trying to make sure that we keep the upstream investment going.
Well, the discussions continue in New York City for what the mayor's office says is the best budget ever. You're hearing some of the love for the Bronx as well from Eric Adams and some of the reporters in that room. We want to get you over to something else happening at the White House today. A major shakeup for the Trump administration. The first big change to the administration staffing since President Donald Trump's second term began. This is the outage of the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. He is now out of that role, as announced this morning by the White House and by two people familiar with the matter, which marks the first major staff shakeup of President Trump's second term. Again, the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, reportedly will depart the Trump administration, the first major departure or shakeup for that core group of administration officials since the beginning of the president's second term. Waltz was at the center of the Signal scandal for being the person who had accidentally added a journalist, Jeffrey Goldberg, from The Atlantic to a private text chain that included a number of other national security and administration officials. That chain on the messaging app Signal was used to discuss some planning for what turned out to be a sensitive military operation back in mid-March against Houthi militants in Yemen. And other people, including allies of the president, have targeted Waltz, telling the president in recent meetings that he needed to purge aides who they believed were insufficiently loyal to the president's agenda. Now, in this case, Waltz's deputy also expected to depart with this, according to the people familiar with this move. They spoke on condition of anonymity to the Associated Press, discussing a personnel move not yet made public. But the National Security Council has not responded to requests for comment from the Associated Press. But according to these sources, and that Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, will depart the Trump administration in the first major shakeup to the administration since it first took office in January. While we continue to follow the fallout from that, here in the Wisconsin Live Desk, we're going to get another check on an interesting crossroads between the administration's efforts when it comes to immigration and customs enforcement and Milwaukee. Of course, this is referring to the issues inside the Milwaukee County Courthouse and the recent arrest and removal of a circuit court judge at the Milwaukee County Courthouse. We'll get into that after this break, while also keeping an eye on space and on headquarters. NASA officials there and scientists keeping a close watch over their two astronauts conducting a mission outside of the International Space Station. That would be a spacewalk happening in the moment, a live look inside of the headquarters there where all the planning and communication happens here on planet Earth, while the astronauts are doing their work out in space right now. Just go think about that. We'll take a short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk and be back with more after this. Hey, welcome back. Carl Defmaw here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. It is 12:47 on this Thursday afternoon, joining you from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but able to bring you all over the place. We have cameras that can show you everything, including what the weather story of the day is without really needing some words, although you might need some for a descriptor. This is a picture from our Estabrook Tower camera here in Milwaukee on this Thursday afternoon. I can assure you this camera feed is actually working. You just can't see anything because of how messy and nasty it is outside. Here's another view. This is our downtown camera showing you a look at the Milwaukee County Courthouse, which will play into a story we're bringing you shortly with our reporter covering the fallout from the arrest of Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan inside of that very courthouse, but also gives you a sense of the weather that we're dealing with on this Thursday here in southeastern Wisconsin. It is a much different tale right up above us, just a short skip and a jump, right? As we take you live back to this feed from NASA, 2 astronauts get their chance to do the 5th all-female spacewalk in history. These are NASA astronauts Anne McClain alongside with Nicole Ayers, who were part of this spacewalk today. Both of them military officers, both of them pilots. They reached the Orbiting Science Lab, the ISS, in March, actually replacing those 2 NASA astronauts who were stuck for so many months. They're back on solid ground while these 2 replacements get the chance to do a spacewalk and conduct some of the work out there on the International Space Station. In Anne McClain's case, she actually missed out on what turned out to be the first all-female spacewalk. That was because of a sizing issue when it came to the spacesuit 6 years ago. Instead, she gets her chance to conduct an all-female spacewalk today, what turns out to be the 5th, with her fellow astronaut Nicole Ayers. Minutes before floating out, McClain, that first astronaut I mentioned, noticed some strands of string actually on the index finger of her right glove. So Mission Control this morning briefly delayed the start of the spacewalk to make sure that her glove was in fact safe. That shows you the level of detail and control you certainly want at all levels if you're conducting something that looks as smooth as what we're seeing right now, but actually is so incredibly complicated and dangerous, happening so many miles above us, actually in space. This is Spacewalk 93 outside of the International Space Station. Now, after figuring things out with that glove and those strands of string, during the spacewalk, what they're actually doing, this is work. This isn't just a joyride or anything like that for these NASA astronauts. The pair is preparing the space station for another new set of solar panels. They're also moving an antenna on the complex as well. So some important work happening outside of the ISS right now. The space station actually had to be raised into a slightly higher orbit last evening, to avoid space junk. That space junk was from a 20-year-old Chinese rocket, and the ISS had to move to avoid that. You think you don't want to hit a bird or something like that when you're on a passenger jet. You certainly don't want to hit remains of a 20-year-old Chinese rocket when you're floating on a space station above planet Earth. Some of the other things about kind of the history and the background of this spacewalk for those astronauts. Again, Anne McClain is an Army colonel, a helicopter pilot. She was supposed to take part in the first all-female spacewalk back in 2019. At the time, though, there were not enough size medium suits. So the first woman-only spacewalk ended up happening without her. This latest one is the 5th in the 60 years that there have been spacewalks happening so high above us. Some of the other interesting notes here, of course, men still outnumber women in the astronaut corps, although that is changing. Of NASA's 47 active astronauts right now, 20 are women. And of the 7 astronauts currently living at the space station, McClain and Ayers, participating in this spacewalk, are the only 2 women. It was also the first spacewalk in general for Ayers, who is an Air Force major, a former fighter pilot actually, and it is the 3rd for Anne McClain as the work continues high above us. I always think about what a feeling that must be. First of all, just being in space, right? Having those views out the windows and the like from the International Space Station, but then that immense feeling of just floating above with just a tether keeping you attached there has to be absolutely wild, even for these highly trained members of the U.S. military, members of NASA, who have spent years and years of their life preparing for a moment like this. It still must just be amazing going out for the first time, as Nicole Ayers is doing right now. The third time that Anne McClain has participated in a spacewalk like this. You can also see kind of all the gear that they have to come attached with, right? You got to bring your tools out there, and you can't rely on just putting it in a pocket or something. It has to be tethered to you so that it doesn't float light years away from you if you accidentally let it go. I mentioned some of the work that they're doing here for this spacewalk. So a new set of solar panels, preparing for that, as the space station will be receiving that new set of solar panels soon, and then the antenna for the complex as well. They're moving one of the antennas for the International Space Station. An amazing sight to see, and it's happening right now live for you on the Wisconsin Live Desk. I don't know about you, I'm fascinated by all things space, going back to when I was a kid. So just the concept of seeing something like this happening so high above us, almost in another world, so to speak, is just amazing. And they spend all these months in that cramped orbiting science lab, and then a couple people in this case get to go outside and experience true freedom. I wonder if there's a little bit of terrifying feeling as well as you get out there, even though you know that you're tethered, you know you've trained for this and the like. Just fascinating as we're seeing that high above us, thanks to that pair of NASA astronauts participating in just the 5th ever all-female spacewalk outside of the International Space Station. Now here on planet Earth, let's get you back to Milwaukee, and to specifically the Milwaukee County Courthouse, because that has been quite the subject of attention, both here locally in Wisconsin, something we've covered for you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, as well as something that has received national attention, and the continued back and forth between the Trump administration, specifically Immigrations and Customs Enforcement under this new regime, and local judges and different members of law enforcement and the American population here closer to home. So as we get you the latest on the arrest of Judge Hannah Dugan, I want to bring in our reporter covering this for us today. Jason Calvi joins us live. Jason, great to have you back here on the Wisconsin Live Desk with us. First of all, get us up to speed. This has been an ongoing saga going back since her arrest on Friday, and even a few days before that, the realization of what played into this. But for people not familiar, get us up to speed. Where do we stand right now with Judge Hannah Dugan?
Well, Carl, she is no longer in the courtroom, so if I take a couple steps back here, you can see her doors of her courtroom are locked. She did have a number of cases on the docket for her this morning today, and there's a reserve judge that's taking over her cases, but right now the doors of her courtroom are locked. She's going to have to face, be in federal court down the road. This is the county courthouse. She'll be in federal court on May 15th, and we're told by federal prosecutors told the court rather, that they are planning to bring the allegations against Judge Dugan to a federal grand jury. Now, those meet secretly, privately. It's a number of people. They're looking at whether or not the charges, if there's probable charge for the charge, if a majority of the grand jury decides that there is probable charge, then she would be formally indicted. Those charges would then be part of that arraignment that would then take place on May 15th at the federal courthouse, Carl.
Now, all of this is related, Jason, to what allegedly happened in part of her courtrooms, or the kind of side rooms at the Milwaukee County Courthouse here. Take us back through what exactly led to that eventual arrest by the FBI.
Yeah, so what happened was, according to the FBI, there was a number of agents out here in the hallway, and they were waiting to arrest somebody who was inside that courtroom for a hearing. The Eduardo gentleman was inside the courtroom for domestic violence, domestic abuse charge, and so he was in there. But meanwhile, federal immigration agents were planning to arrest him out here because they said he was in the country illegally, and according to the Trump administration guidelines, there are a number of people that they list that then are targeted for enforcement inside courtroom. So we're talking about Eduardo Flores Ruiz. He had that court hearing inside this courtroom. The ICE agents, FBI agents, federal agents were outside waiting to arrest him. They did tell both the security at the front gate who they were when they came in. They told the security, and the security guard at the front gate told them that he needed to talk with a supervisor. That's what they originally went through the security there. And then again here, they went into that courtroom, talked to the bailiff, the deputy who was in that courtroom, and told them they were here for an arrest. And meanwhile, there was another attorney, according to the FBI, another attorney out here that took pictures of the FBI agents, the immigration agents as well, and then went into that courtroom, and according to the FBI complaint, talked with Judge Dugan and told her that there were immigration agents out here ready to arrest that gentleman that was charged with domestic abuse here in Milwaukee County. She came out, according to the FBI, and according to the FBI, they said she was angry towards them and then told them to go talk to the chief judge. Well, where's the chief judge office? Right here, down this hallway here, through those doors, is Chief Judge Carl Ashley of Milwaukee County's office. And they said, you need to go, Judge Dugan, according to the FBI, said, go talk to him about this situation. So they did talk with Judge Ashley. He wasn't present, but they talked with him on the phone and talked about where this arrest could take place after the proceedings in the court wrapped up, and that was to take place, according to the FBI, Judge Ashley told them had to take place in a public area in the hallway. So that's the background. That was April 18th, Carl. And then, just as you mentioned on Friday, that's when the FBI arrested her, Judge Dugan, in this county courthouse, and it gained national attention. The FBI director, Kash Patel, sent out a tweet, or on social media, on X, sent out a message or an image showing her in handcuffs. And really, this has gained national attention for a sitting judge in her own courtroom, her own courthouse, I should say, arrested and now charged or facing criminal complaint by the FBI and waiting for that grand jury to officially indict her, potentially, if they decide to do so.
And Jason, some of the issues on both sides here, they're interesting from a legal perspective, from an immigration perspective, certainly. What no one questions is that that person faced serious charges, also that he was illegally here in the country. To my understanding, you can speak to this a little more fully, I'm sure, is the issue of location, where this happened, where that arrest happened, and what that could mean for the kind of sanctity of the larger criminal justice system as well, when it comes to safe places for both victims to come forward, witnesses in crimes. Can you speak to that and why the issue of ICE agents specifically inside of a courthouse like that seems to be the issue back and forth from different sides?
Yeah, Carl, I was sorry. Somebody was walking by that former chief judge, actually, in Milwaukee County, just walked by, and I was talking to him off camera here, so didn't hear the full question that you just asked me. I believe you wanted me to talk about ICE agents and
just kind of specifically
historical.
The larger issues, Jason, when it comes to they don't.
Said it's not a show, right, Carl? You said in the promo
hey,
it wasn't a show,
it's
right?
a live
so
guest.
I can just do whatever I want, right?
You
talk
can
to you off camera
whenever you want.
I mean,
Absolutely.
let's not be so formal about it, Carl.
Bring him in for an
let's not
interview
be so
if we
formal.
can.
I'll just talk to everybody off camera. But pretty
the
much,
question I was asking, Jason, just to kind of set it up, was like
agents.
the issue of safe spaces. Why specifically ICE agents inside of a courthouse has drawn such attention from the chief judge, whose room you just pointed out, and others discussing whether or not that initial confrontation should have happened even in the first place inside of a courthouse.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll present both sides here. When you look back at the Biden, we always say elections have consequences. So looking back at the 2020 election when President Joe Biden took office, the Biden administration had a policy in place, and it did say that doing immigration arrests, apprehensions in courthouses could have what the Biden administration said. It could chill. It could, scare people away from the courthouses. And they did say there was some instances where a courthouse arrest could be necessary. They lay out a number of different situations, but the bar was really high for the Biden administration. It included a national security threat would be one, the threat of violence as well. And so for the Biden administration, the bar was high. Then the Trump administration came in 2025, and they reworked the policy. And what it says now is that there's a more extension here. There's more groups that could be arrested in courthouses, according to the Trump administration. They added gang members. If someone's a known gang member, that would allow them to arrest that person in a courthouse. If they've already been removed from the country and already kicked out of the country, and then they come back, then that person would be eligible, according to the Trump administration, to be again arrested in a courthouse. So the Trump administration grew the list of people that can be arrested in a courtroom. Remember, the Biden administration said it could potentially chill people's access to courthouses, and so they're worried about that. But if there's a national security threat or a threat of violence or the threat that somebody's going to destroy evidence, well, then go ahead, you can arrest somebody for an immigration offense in a courthouse. Trump administration says, let's grow that list to gangs and people that have been kicked out of the country. So that's where we are right now under the new Trump administration. What's interesting about both of the policies, when you look at the Biden policy and the Trump policy, Carl, is that both of them suggest that these arrests should take place in private areas of the courthouse. So I don't know what's going to happen now, because the chief judge is working on this policy about exactly where the ICE arrest should be taking place. And what we've heard from them, and even saw it in the FBI criminal complaint, was, arrests, you can't control what a federal agent does in a public hallway. This is public property. This is your courthouse. This is our courthouse. This is the public's courthouse. We have rights to be in this public hallway. The arrests can take place in the public hallway. But then when you look at both guidance from the Trump and Biden administrations, they suggested that those arrests should take place in non-public areas. So is there a balancing act here? That's what Chief Judge Carl Ashley is really wrestling with this policy that they're putting together right now.
It has certainly become a flashpoint, starting here in Milwaukee in that very same hallway that Jason's standing in, and leading to discussion all around the country right now. A topical issue, to say the least. All right, Jason, we'll let you get back to your reporting here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, because we know you'll have full reports later today. We'll let you maybe track down that gentleman, that person you were chatting to off camera, and see what you can find for an official word tonight. Thanks for joining us here and bringing some of the off the pizzazz to the Wisconsin Live Desk, we could say, my man. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl.
We're going to take a short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. It is a good reminder from Jason there. Anything can happen. Maybe a source walks by and you have a conversation with him here on the fly. We'll make sure that Jason gets back to work and gets that for us later today. You can watch his full reporting on the arrest and the fallout of the arrest of Judge Hannah Dugan here on Fox Local later today. We are going to take a short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, get you another big story happening here in the state of Wisconsin after that. That would be the preliminary hearing for Gary Day, the man at the center of an Amber Alert from earlier this year. We'll get the latest from his appearance in court this morning. That's next on the Wisconsin Live Desk. Welcome back to the Wisconsin Live Desk. Carl Defenbaugh joining you here as we're just past the 1 o'clock hour here in Central Time, joining you from our Milwaukee studio, covering the news across the state of Wisconsin. And in this case, something that started in Wisconsin and reached across multiple states before finally turning back to the Badger State. That would be the Amber Alert that started in Beaver Dam because of the actions allegedly of a man named Gary Day. And for that, we're going to bring in our reporter covering this today, Stephanie Quirk, joining us from the newsroom here at Fox 6. Stephanie, Gary Day had his preliminary hearing this morning. I know you've been listening to a lot of that. There was some testimony from a police officer as well inside that courtroom. Take it away. Where do we stand right now with the case against Gary Day that all started with the alleged kidnapping of a pregnant teenager from Beaver Dam?
Year-old Gary Day is the man accused in this case, and today in court, a judge actually established probable cause and ordered that Day will stand trial. So we know his next court date is an arraignment June 3rd, I believe. Yes, June 3rd here. As you mentioned, a detective with Beaver Dam Police actually testified this morning during the prelim and fielded questions from both the prosecution and the defense just about, kind of the timeline of this, because obviously, as you mentioned, the Amber Alert was for 2 months here, but the victim in this case, the teen from Beaver Dam, she was eventually located in Arkansas, and he discussed those interviews after kind of going back and forth with the prosecution and defense today, but the judge ultimately decided with the state and ordered he will stand trial.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was questions of where Gary Day and this pregnant teenager had ended up. They thought maybe Arkansas, maybe he was changing license plates on that vehicle. Eventually arrested outside of Omaha, I believe. The two of them were spotted at a gas station in Nebraska there before he was brought back to Wisconsin. What else did we hear from that member of Beaver Dam Police as well? You said it was a detective speaking this morning about where their case stands, what they have found so far that led the judge to continue to move this towards a trial.
Yeah, absolutely. There's back and forth kind of with questions with the timeline of this all and who reached out to who, whether that was the victim or Day in this case. But they did note that when the victim was allegedly found in Nebraska right outside of Omaha at a gas station, it was actually the detective said in court today that it was actually a witness spotted the victim and then called police. So that's kind of how this detective and Beaver Dam Police as a whole got looped into this investigation. He also noted that there was a forensic investigator that interviewed the victim after this and asked questions about the timeline and where the two allegedly traveled, what their relationship was like. And one thing that was interesting is actually the two allegedly traveled to Oregon at one point. We do know also that Day was convicted of child abuse in Arkansas back in 2020, and the two had been communicating allegedly for a while.
Yeah, one thing we should mention as well is that Gary Day is believed to be the father of that unborn child, of that teenager who went missing from Beaver Dam. That's interesting, though. So we had thought of this as kind of a sort of Midwest-centered search. Missouri was mentioned, Nebraska, where they were eventually found. But they actually made it all the way out to the West Coast, Steph, to Oregon together before, I guess, coming back?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go back to my notes, actually, because I could probably get a date. But they did drive to the West Coast, kind of talking about, their relationship and things like that. One of the things that was brought up in court today is the age of consent in Nebraska. The age of consent is 16 in Nebraska. In Oregon, the age of consent is 18. So again, these two were allegedly having sexual relations. The victim actually the detective told investigators that she admitted to having sexual relations with him, but one of the things that kind of hammered down on the prosecution is that the age of consent in Oregon is 18, and ultimately, so judge went with the state and said that is a crime then.
And that teenager went missing when she was 16. I believe she was found actually on her 17th birthday in Nebraska was the case with that. All right, Stephanie, let me ask you this. Where do we kind of go from here? So that next appearance in court is in early June. Will that be the start of the actual trial at that point, or still some of the legal hoops to jump through before we get to a full trial for Gary Day?
Yeah, absolutely. The Day is due back in court for an arraignment on June 3rd. So Today, they established probable cause to the judge on whether or not there is probable cause in this case, that he will stand trial for the crimes he's accused of. And just going back to those crimes he's accused of, child enticement and abduction, a total of 4 counts, all felonies. We do know that that teen, the 16, she's 17 now, but was 16 at the time of these alleged crimes, is back home. So we'll see what plays out in the courtroom on June 3rd with this arraignment and how this trial will play out too, Carl.
Yeah, it's certainly been quite a saga, followed by many here in Wisconsin, then in other states as well. One thing I'll just note before we let Steph get back to her work, the reason that we're not naming the teenager, at the time of the Amber Alert, we were using her name. That was when it was a public search for that missing teenager. Now that she is back home, now that she has been identified as the alleged victim of a crime of this nature, we are not naming her because she is underage and a victim in this case. So that's why you'll see us continue to refer to as the teenager, the pregnant teenager from Beaver Dam, but not by her actual name, which we had used previously. Stephanie Quirk reporting from the newsroom on the latest development in Gary Day's criminal trial and case against him. Thank you very much. We'll hear more from you later on Fox Local. We'll let you get back to your work there.
Thank you so much, Carl. Appreciate it.
All right, as she continues her work here on the Wisconsin Live Desk, again, you can hear more from what happened inside of that courtroom this morning, Gary Day's preliminary hearing, as he is accused of those multiple crimes against a teenager from Beaver Dam. We'll let her continue her reporting. Look for that on Fox Local later today. We're going to take another short break here on the Wisconsin Live Desk and then see what else we can find for you on the other side of this break. Hey, Carl Deffenbaugh back with you here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. It's 1:16 on this Thursday afternoon. We covered a lot for you here in the state of Wisconsin, some of the stories that have made national headlines starting in Wisconsin, then going across the country. We're also keeping an eye on things happening across the country as well, as this is May Day. It is May 1st. And that leads to a number of different marches, protests, and the like, all in favor of labor and unions going back to the 1800s in the United States and continuing on May 1st of each year for the most part since then. That includes some of the marches out in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital this morning, where it's not just worker rights, it's a larger view on immigrant rights and some of the administration's policies and the effect they're having on both foreign and domestic workers workers here in the United States. There's a podium set up here at this May Day march and protest, so let's listen in to some of the speakers sharing their beliefs on this International Day, but specifically when it comes to the impacts on worker rights here in America.
26, 2024, the day I learned that my husband was among the missing at the Key Bridge collapse. May 1st, 2024, the day that I finally retrieved his body. May 1st, 2024, when I was finally able to start making plans to let him lay in peace. Carmen nos manda unas palabras poderosas. Dice que hay 3 fechas que ella recuerda. El 26 de marzo del 2024, cuando se enteró que su esposo era una de las personas que hubiera caído en el puente. El 1 de mayo, cuando ellos pudieron encontrar a uno de los últimos cuerpos, y el 1 de marzo, cuando ella por fin pudo comenzar a hacer los planes para enterrar a su esposo. Now, how many of you know the name Kilmer Abrego García? ¿Cuántos conocen el nombre de Kilmer Abrego García? If we don't get it, if we don't get it, if we don't get it, if we don't get it. If you know the name of Kilmer, you know that he was a father, a partner, and a union worker, and a proud CASA member. On March 12, 2025, he was wrongly deported and sent to a dangerous prison in El Salvador. The Trump administration called it a mistake, but we all know that this was a political attack against our community. Si ustedes conocen el nombre de Kilmer, ustedes saben que es un padre, un amigo y un trabajador sindical y un orgulloso miembro de casa. El 12 de marzo del 2025 lo deportaron erróneamente, con lo que esta administración llama un error, pero nosotros todos sabemos que esto fue un ataque político a nuestra comunidad. And guess what? We will fight every single day until he makes it home. When we fight, when we fight, when we fight, cuando luchamos, And it's now my deep honor to introduce someone whose courage and strength have inspired us all and our entire community. She has turned her pain into purpose and is leading the fight not only for her husband, but for every member, for every brother and sister that is being attacked by this administration. Please help me welcome Jennifer.
As you're hearing some of the speakers mention Kilmer Abrego Garcia there, that is the Maryland man who the Trump administration said was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. He was not supposed to be sent there. We actually just got an update on that yesterday. A federal judge again ruled that the Trump administration needs to provide information about efforts so far to comply with an order to return Kilmer Abrego Garcia to the U.S. from El Salvador. The Trump administration continues to insist that he is in fact a member of the MS-13 gang, and that is why the administration will not retrieve him from El Salvador. Just last week, that same federal judge had castigated the administration for ignoring court orders, saying they were obstructing the legal process and acting in bad faith. While those protests and speakers continue, we want to tell you a few other things happening right now in the moment here on the Wisconsin Live Desk. This is a live feed from, let me get this for you, an appearance by the Vice President touring a steel plant in South Carolina. As you're seeing quite the gathering there outside of a massive steel plant in South Carolina. We are expecting Vice President J.D. Vance to be part of that appearance at some point. If it happens over the next 10 minutes or so while we're here with you on the Wisconsin Live Desk, we'll try to bring that for you live. In the meantime, though, the State Department spokesperson is taking questions from the media right now. This just started as well, so we want to try to bring you some of that, seeing where the administration's efforts when it comes to foreign relations stand right now, according to the spokesperson for the State Department. This is a briefing coming from Washington with Tammy Bruce. Let's listen in live here on the Wisconsin Live Desk.
Truth Social that Mike Waltz is going to become the new U.S. ambassador to the United Nations.
Well, there you
no
go.
longer the National Security
Fabulous.
Advisor. And in addition to that, he says that in the interim, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as National Security Advisor while continuing his strong leadership at the State Department. Do you know how long he's going to be serving in both roles?
It is clear that I just heard this from you. This is the magic.
No heads up that this was coming today?
I have some insights as to the potential of certain things that might happen. But when the president, and this of course is all presidential decisions, right? So I'm with the State Department. It is, as I think would be clear to all of you, you don't want to get ahead of your skis in drawing conclusions or speculating about what may occur. And you can have a general sense of what's possible, and then you see that manifest usually. But I think the one thing I've learned is that things don't happen until the president says they're going to happen. So the fact that is, which was obviously Truth Social. Yeah, so that is the miracle of modern technology and the social media. So that is an exciting moment here. I think that, as I know Secretary Rubio, this is a man who, as I think you all know, has worn several hats from day one in managing the nature of what's happened here at the State Department, at USAID. He's someone who's well known by the president. The president makes perfect assessments about who would implement his agenda. And in this case, he's chosen certainly the secretary and Mr. Waltz to facilitate his agenda moving forward. Not entirely surprising, I have to say, and good news for the American people.
Well, there you go. The spokesperson for the State Department, I can say, playing off some surprise there quite well as a development happening for the person who leads her department, the State Department. President Donald Trump posting on Truth Social just minutes ago, in fact, that he is going to nominate Mike Waltz to be the next U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. So instead of being the national security advisor in the Trump administration, President Trump says he's instead nominating Mike Waltz, who was at the center of that Signal scandal, accidentally adding a journalist to that Signal messaging app chain. That Mike Waltz instead will be nominated to be the next U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. And at the same time, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Tammy Bruce's boss at the State Department, will serve as national security advisor while continuing also at the State Department. Again, that was just announced by President Donald Trump on his Truth Social social media account. News to the spokesperson of the State Department actually there fielding questions from reporters. Things happening very much on the fly here on the Wisconsin Live Desk and in Washington as well. Let's listen in to some more of the briefing now that we've gotten you up to speed.
Have a journey that is set with a goal that has been determined, and it's staffed with men and women who understand what the agenda is and how to get it done. Now, this is obviously the president knows everybody in his cabinet, and all those cabinet members have staffs. And every department has people that he gets to know and that make a difference in how the departments work. So when we think about how is Secretary Rubio going to do this, well, it's like, how does President Trump run the United States? You have people around you. It's not just you, right? These aren't single individuals working every day and you pulling the levers. It's about managing people. It's about assigning people to the right roles, as the president has just done. And if anybody can do it, certainly with the secretaries, I've gotten to know him, it will be Marco Rubio.
So, Tammy,
all right, now, were you finished in the sense of?
Well, when you get to this, I did want to ask you about the Houthis, because Secretary Hegseth had a very sharply
He did. So
worded
let's do this. Are you going to continue on this line?
No,
we're going to move on. All right. So we've done 3 and 4, and I know. Look, this is and you are going to be all writing stories that I'm going to be fascinated to read. But I think that's pretty much as I can say about the nature of what's going to happen from this point forward today. And so let's go ahead with Andrea and see what else. The Houthis.
Presumably,
Well, that continues the briefing from the State Department there, and a bit of news happening on the fly. President Donald Trump on Truth Social announcing that he is going to nominate who was his national security advisor, Mike Waltz, to in fact be the U.S. ambassador to the UN instead, the first major shakeup to the Trump administration since its retaking of power in January after the 2024 election. We want to end here as we're counting down the minutes here on the Wisconsin Live Desk with something, let's just say, a little bit lighter for you here on this Thursday afternoon. That would be some new developments from Wait for it, the Wisconsin Beef Council, which has run its Best Burger contest once again, and they have crowned Wisconsin's Best Burger. A big congratulations here to Brazen Head Pub. This is in West Bend, so from our corner of the state here in southeastern Wisconsin. This is the second annual Best Burger contest run by the Wisconsin Beef Council, and the winner is the Brazen Beer Cheese Burger from Brazen Head Pub in West Bend. Apparently stole the show. A half-pound Angus beef patty with cheddar cheese, crispy bacon, onion rings, and heart beer cheese, all on a pretzel bun. If that doesn't get you ready for a mid-afternoon snack here at 127, I don't know what does. That sounds amazing. There's also a build-your-own burger experience from that bar as well, and they say an honor just being nominated for a second year in a row by our customers. Winning is a surprise with such stiff competition. The owner of Brazen Head Pub in West Bend there, soaking in the success thanks to their Brazen Beer Cheeseburger. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great rest of your day.